Hi, I'm Richie Mackay.
And I'm David Bolt, and you are listening to the Wrong Bias podcast.
And on today's show, we have our guest is Stephen Beamish from Leicestershire, and he's coming onto the show to talk to us about the academy that is currently being set up in the county to promote bowls to youth. Also on the show, we have a little bit of a chat about the new labour measures. What do we think about them? Do we think they're going to be a success, or are they going to be a flop? We also move on to discuss something that happened for the first time in the national singles in 2007. We also catch up on a few questions that I missed on my live blog. I was only able to answer a few of those questions, so the ones we missed we do catch up on. Finally, we have our normal competition sponsored by Alex Marshall Sports, and details will be during the podcast.
Well, mate, here we are again. Show 16, another week of lockdown, and a little bit of action on the green for some clubs, mate.
Yes, yeah, there's been a few posting on Facebook this week showing their first bowls for the season.
At the recording of our 15th show, the guidelines hadn't been issued, but they have come out. Bowls England, you've got to compliment Bowls England how swiftly they got their guidelines cleared with the government. There's a lot you've got to do, which I think would put a lot of people off, but there'll be also quite a few clubs possibly frustrated by their local council stance of not opening the greens at the minute.
Yeah, obviously we've been sort of part of that. I suppose the ultimate thing out of all of this is safety is paramount. So, that's got to be the number one sort of outcome of what the situation is. When we've looked into it, there's still quite a lot of things that it's quite easy to turn around and say we can just get back on the green and, put the guidelines in place. But there is surrounding factors like the liability insurance that the club may have. So, it's important that clubs are checking whoever they use for that liability insurance that it covers this particular scenario. Because obviously the last thing that any club wants, God forbid anybody was to have an accident or to catch the virus, are they actually covered if anybody was to put a claim in against the club? With regards to ours, I was a little bit frustrated on the local basis, just purely for the fact that I just feel that there could have been a little bit of contact made to the clubs. Right. I don't know if it has. I don't know if they have spoken to anybody in authority in the area. God forbid.
Easy, Tiger.
I just think they could have spoken to a couple of the clubs and said, what are your plans with regards to the government guidelines, with regards to the national governing body guidelines? What would your thoughts be about opening your club if we were to do so? And I think our input might have just helped move that along a little bit, because I stated previously that the guidelines I put in place for my club at such were very, very basic. There was no clubhouse getting opened. It was a case of opening the gate, taking your own mat and jack on that would be provided by the club, and that would be it. You mark the green yourself using a cloth, and if you want to roll some balls up, then roll it up. But more I think about it, the councils, I suppose we've got so much going on, we forget that we're not just the only clubs in the area. There's multiple organisations and multiple sports in the area that are looked after by the council. Yeah. So I've got no doubt that potentially having to do risk assessments for every single one of these and look at the nitty-gritty of safety, etc., before making an ultimate decision and probably providing their own guidelines. So I think reading along the lines, it looks around about the beginning of June, they're all going to meet. I know certainly I think Durham Council, South Tyneside Council, and I would imagine Sunderland are going to meet and make these decisions as to whether the greens are allowed to open for the season. But I don't think it's any shock that it's a very low percentage of people who are wanting to actually go back out.
No, I agree, yeah.
For all the clamour on social media about how desperate we are to get back out of bowls, I think when it's come to the crux and they see what the guidelines are, and you're going down there and just chucking some balls balls up and having to wipe your balls, wipe the mat, all of the things that are in place doesn't, for me, read as if it would make an enjoyable half an hour, 40 minutes. I don't know what your thoughts were.
No, I quite agree, mate. I mean, as for the council's stance, I think they're more concerned in a public park where you'll have members of the public walking through the park and they see a bowling green, and you can guarantee that there'll be times when social distancing will not be adhered to, and somebody will have a camera, they take a photograph. How can I not go and see my family when this is going on my local bowls club, you know? So I can understand it at one sense. I think private clubs have probably got a little bit more leeway because they're sort of like in a bubble. My only concern is, I'll do the guidelines, I can do it, but will Joe Bloggs behind us be doing it? Will Joe Bloggs in front of us be doing it?
Yeah.
That you're relying on other people, and we all know there's always the odd person. I'm not doing that. I'm going on bowling my balls, and I'm not doing the cleaning and what have you. So
yeah, and that's what the government sort of are trying to rely on, people using their common sense. But it's blatantly obvious that there are a lot of people who are, well, I've seen a lot of people. There's a minority of people who are not using common sense.
Yeah.
And just seem to think that they can just go their own way and do what they want because of blah blah blah, and it's just human nature, I suppose, isn't it?
It is, mate. You're
never going to get 100% of people who are going to agree with things that are put in place, and there's a lot of people, including myself at times. I've got no issues with the guidelines. I've got no issues with the government putting them in place. The frustration for me is there's so many grey areas that contradict each other. I kind of grasp how you can have a cleaner and a nanny or a childminder can walk into your parents' house, but then you can't go and visit your parents yourself. I don't get it. I really just don't get that.
It is puzzling at times, mate, but hopefully maybe back end of June things might settle down a little bit and clubs could open. I know my clubs took the decision not to open at all this season, whether it gets reviewed if the guidelines get relaxed. I know there's another club in Sunderland that's took the same decision. They've took in consideration of the age of the membership, which is fair play. You can't really argue with it.
Yeah, I think when it comes back to that common sense thing, I think that decision has been made on common sense, because if we can all hope and cross our fingers that a season might happen, but what is going to happen now? You're not going to have leagues. You're not going to be able to potentially run any of your standard competitions that run throughout the season. The best you could probably hope for is maybe singles and pairs club competitions internal, but I just cannot see it. And like I said, we talked about before, we've got fears for the indoor at the start of that. Is that going to? That's a different kettle of fish altogether, because you're within a building.
That's
so
right.
We've just got to hope that things make a dramatic improvement, or potentially it could just linger on for a few months more yet.
For quite a while. Anyway, we finally got our website up and running.
Fantastic job you've done there, mate.
I bit the bullet and tried to knock one together. Got a rogues gallery of our previous winners, the summary of the episodes, which you can look at. You can catch up. There's links to catch up with all the episodes. We've reinvented Bolty's blog. That's probably been lying in furlough for a few months.
I have my moments. I go through spells where I get the inspiration to write a few bits, but then there's quite a bit going on at the minute, so I'm sure I'll get back to it at some point.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get people to possibly write a few articles. We'll stick it on. We'll mention the articles on the podcast. It's on the website for people to go and have a look. They can leave comments and we can discuss it at later points. Part of your Bolty's blog, you've trialled last week the Bolty's blog live, mate.
Yes, yeah, I was actually while I was out doing my little final stint on the charity walk. I just had a bit wander around, and I've mentioned to you previously before about maybe just opening ourselves up for an hour or two just via keyboards, just to basically see if anybody's got any questions, drop us a question during these times, and we'll do our best to answer them. And I thought with the current technology we have at our fingertips, is it a good opportunity to maybe do something live where people can interact? And it came off the back of the spot prize draws that I did. Really, I can understand everybody, the numbers entering to potentially win a free prize for nothing, but then to follow that up by getting 60-70 people coming on and watching the live draw, I just thought there's interaction there. So if I could apply that by just doing something in between our podcasts, just cover the week or cover some points that have happened, or give a little bit of information, bit of Q&A, things like that. And it seemed to go really well, the last one.
Well, mate, yeah.
The only downside for everybody is they've got to see my ugly mug, but I'm sure with a little bit of makeup in the future or something, I'll sort that out.
Leanne, lipstick time. Leanne, get them red lips on him so you look like Jackie Man. Get them big white red lips on him. Anyway, we're going to tackle a few of the unanswered questions at the end on a separate section on today's podcast, so your questions are not going to waste. A quick shout out while we're still on the likes of the live chat is to one of our guests, top umpire Alan Thornhill's Q&A. I tuned into his latest one. I found it very interesting, mate. I think you've listened to one of his earlier ones and you were equally impressed.
Yeah, definitely. Alan's excellent. I've got masses of time for Alan. He gives so much back with regards to he never qualms about anybody asking him any questions. He actually thrives, I think, on people dropping him a message and showing him the respect that he obviously knows the answers. And he's without doubt he's one of the top, if not the top umpire in the world. And again, he's given his time back by doing a couple now question and answer sessions, which definitely the first one I thought was really good. I tuned in for 10 or 15 minutes of that, and it always just shows, it's all about how many people tune in. I put a daft little gif on mine last night about the live thing about standing in an empty room where everybody. So you just never know if anybody's going to actually be interested. But he was getting good numbers on there, and thankfully I've got decent numbers as well. So yeah, all good. And I think that's certainly one thing he'll continue to do, hopefully in the future. I think it's a benefit for everybody. We've all got those little questions that we don't know the answer to. I've played for 30 odd years, and there's still things I probably don't know and just can't be bothered to find out sometimes. So it's great to be able to just quickly ask a question and get the answer.
Yeah, there was one that he covered on his latest one, was when you've got the live ball in the ditch and the ball comes to rest on top of it, over the top of the green. Now, a lot of people would probably go and pick it up, saying that, well, it's off the green, but it's actually still a live ball.
Still alive, yeah, because it's still actually touching the green and touching a live ball, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So, I was well impressed with it, Alan. Good job, mate. Top job. We'll stick a link on the next one that he does. You mentioned it earlier on in our chat, mate. Your walk, you finally completed it. You picked probably the windiest day of the year to do it. And
I did. I don't know. I knew I had to get it done before the end of May, and it was. I'd had that many sort of pains and a very uncomfortable month, let's say. As every time I was doing it, the next few days I was suffering for it. So I woke up on the morning and I felt pretty good, and I thought, right, I'm going to get my backside out. Worst case scenario, I'll try and get at least 6 of the 10 miles done, so that I know I've just got a little stint to finish off with, and I've got a good week and a bit to do it. But I got down there, and my biggest problem has been it hasn't so much been the fitness side of things. I don't feel particularly fatigued when I'm doing it. It just ends up where I'm either getting blisters on the bottom of my feet, so my feet are starting to burn, or my legs might tighten up a little bit, or my back's giving us a bit of pain. And the one thing that's bugged my life since I played football from when I was a kid, I get horrendous shin splints. The first 3 miles, I was in a bit of pain with that, so I had to battle through it. But then it loosened off, and I cracked on and managed to get the 10 done. But the last mile, I'm not joking. Honestly, I was starting to, probably because I didn't have enough water to cover the 2 and a bit hours that I was doing. But that last mile, stupidly, I was keep looking at my phone to see how far I was going. I'm sure it was going backwards. I'm sure it was like 9.1, and then 25 minutes later it got up to 9.2. I got it done. Really happy to get it done, and I've publicly thanked everybody for donations. And once it's all in, I've got a couple of people who said they're going to put in. I think we're going to be around about the £300 mark, which I'm over the moon about.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to a good cause, mate, isn't it? So
it is. They're a great cause, and like I say, a lot of people probably don't realise that they don't get funded by the governing body, so they've got to raise their own funds. So they've been doing this 2.6 challenge, and I think they've raised around about £2,700 doing that little challenge, which is great for them.
Yeah, tremendous. I was fully expecting to see your latest GPS map to look like an Ordnance Survey map in the wind. I was expecting it to have been blown left, right and centre, mate. There was definitely one of them. There was one where the arrow, I don't know whether the wind had gotten a hold of you. It blew you off course by about 60 miles by the GPS.
I don't know where those lines come from, because I don't actually start it until I get down onto the track,
and
then stop it once didn't get us wrong. As soon as I saw that 10-mile click over,
I was off.
And that was it. It was like no more walk. I was a bit like Forrest Gump, you know, when he runs 140 miles and then all of a sudden he stops. That was me. But the track was really busy yesterday. So there was a few times I was having to sort of weave around different people.
Weave around.
Yeah, the speed I was going, obviously I had to quickly make a manoeuvre. But yeah, it was good to get it done, and I've got my treadmill working now. So the plan now is moving forward. I'd really like to get myself in good shape for the indoors if it is possible to play.
Yeah.
So I'll be hitting the treadmill for the next 2 or 3 months, and I've even dug my weights out of the cupboard as well. So
and put them back. He dug them out and put them back.
I put them straight back. They were far too heavy.
Fantastic. Right, mate. Laser measures. It seems to be the in thing at the minute. There's a one from Australia, a set of meds called Cracker Jack. It's a little box which dismantles. You put one against the jack, one up against the ball. Press the button, tells you where it is. You go to the other one, press the button, and you find out who's the nearest. Apparently, it's $100 Australian, which works out about 50 or 60 quid over here.
Yeah, I think I saw them advertised about 60 over here. Yeah.
Now, I thought it looked a bit cumbersome. I thought it was time taking, and it might be okay on the longer measures. Don't know what range they've got, where your measures cannot reach, and you know the old days where you used to use your measures, get a matchstick, stick it in the green, and put your mesh against the matchstick and go a bit further. I can see the benefit that way, but during a game, I think it's just a little bit too cumbersome, mate.
It's one of those things I've always said with the technology that we have today. You would think that there was an alternative option to the box and string measures. Surely I've always said there must be something which you can calculate quickly the distance between one point and another, but I haven't looked greatly into them, to be honest with you. I mean, one question springs to mind. I don't know if you know a great deal, whether it was mentioned on the video that you were watching, but how does it work with if the jack was to go in the ditch?
Well, you wouldn't be able to use it, would you? Unless you'd need a mirror to reflect the beam down onto the ball.
Which is one of the things I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's sounding like it's going to be a lot of work for what should be something that makes it a more efficient task.
Yeah.
But really, you kind of get, as long as you've got a really strong umpire, which, we would hope most are, if not all, and they get down there, and what does it take? 25 seconds? 30 seconds with a string box measure to get a measurement between two balls and turn out which one you think's the shot. So, all my thoughts of how something would make it a lot easier doesn't seem to have come to fruition with this one, because, like you said, it just does seem to be a little bit long-winded.
So have you got a preference, get me teeth in, have you got a preference what kind of measures that you use? I mean, you can use the metal ones, but sometimes you see them, they've got kinks in them.
I've got an absolute preference as to what measures I like to use.
You use
any
none.
time it is called an umpire.
Oh.
I cannot stand using measures at any point in time, because I have got a touch like a bull in a china shop. So what might have been 4 shots ends up being 2, because I've rolled 2 of them away. But in all seriousness, I do think the bigger box measure, where you can really get a firm plant onto the ground and get the point up to the jack. The only thing I find with them is sometimes that recoil is a little bit
severe.
Because how many times do you see it? You try to measure it and you didn't take your button off it, did you? So,
medic!
You go down and measure 2 balls and you come off a whiplash. I think that's the most solid one I've tried. Those little thin things that you used to be able to get before with a metal tape that came out, and really, really nice and smooth. But to try and get them as a solid base on the ground to be able to measure them was just an absolute nightmare. When you've got big wall sausage fingers like I've got, little short stubby things, it is not an easy task. So my preferred outcome is shout on an umpire. My second outcome is give it to somebody else to do.
What a cowboy.
Definitely, yeah. I do like the for the closer measures, I love the calipers. I think they do a great job for anything in and around 18 inches. Luckily, I've played with a lot of lads who play carpet balls, and they are, I don't know whether it's built into them or what, because they're obviously always dealing with that close scenario where they've got loads of balls close. Yeah. But name a couple, Jackson McKenna and Neil Ridley, who both play carpet balls in the past or currently. They are just tremendous with measures. Yeah. You know, if you ever wanted somebody to get down there and have a steady measure with whatever, they are the boys to do it. But yeah, by yourself, which ones do you prefer?
Well, I'm probably like you. I mean, I started off with the metal ones, the little, I think they were the Terries, the little metal ones, and I thought they were all right, but then they got kinked in, and I was using them one day, and this fella said, hey, you can't use them measures, they've got kinks in, you could be cheating. And I'm looking at him going, there's not a cheating bone in my frigging body, and he's come out with that. So I went out and bought the string ones, and I do like the string ones. I'm with you. I like the string ones. I think that you can get a bit stabilisation when you press the button down. There's the one that used to be like a tape measure with, they actually had the measurements on there. It was like a Stanley tape, and you pressed on it, and like you say, you press on it and it would move the jack. You had to press that hard to get it, and nah. I'm with you, mate. I'm the string man. I'm not an umpire fella, as you know. I'd get out and get the measures out, do it myself first, and then get the umpire on if it's tight.
Definitely. I've often thought from TV, if we ever got into a position where we were a little bit more on TV and some if we ever did get any bigger competitions, I've always thought what would be great would be what they use in the tennis and the cricket, the Hawkeye.
Oh, yes,
because literally, I would imagine, because of where all the cameras are situated, Hawkeye will be able to get a sort of a pinpoint accuracy of where the two balls are and literally be able to give you an answer within seconds as to which one was the closest. Yeah. I don't know if that would be possible, but you know, I've got no doubt it's quite an expensive way to go about it, but, you know, if we ever did get to that point, rather than using lasers, that would, for me, be the ideal option, and all you're doing then is just advising the umpire X or Y is the shot, and crack on.
Yeah. I don't know whether I was dreaming this, but was there a lad that had developed an app on the phone where you could just open it up, center the jack over the app on your phone, press it, and it would tell you the distance or something like that?
It did, and I'm sure it's a really good point you brought that up, actually, because that seems to have, I've never seen anybody use it, and I'm sure some said you could, some said you couldn't, and that's possibly for Alan's next Q&A is possibly a question for us to ask him, because it was definitely there.
I see it, yeah.
Move over the top, like you said, with whatever device, and it would give you the answer as to what you were looking for. So I wonder what's happened to that. That's a good one.
I'll tell you what would be interesting would be to actually, if we can manage to dig the app out, to physically try it, to measure two balls ourselves, then put the app over the top and see if the app tells us the same as what we think. I think that's the ultimate test, mate, for me.
Definitely, without a doubt.
So I think that's a work in progress, that one, mate. We'll let you know, folks, how that goes.
And I would say if anybody has tried it, please drop us a line as well, just to let us know what you thought about it, and better still if we know whether it's still in existence and whether people actually use it.
Yeah, champion. Welcome to Richie's Roundup. Cue the music. What's that? Been fair, Lord? You sure? Oh well, get me hat and coat then. And now we find out about Leicestershire's plans for an academy with Stephen Beamish.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
No problem.
We've spoken obviously previously, and we'd always said that we were going to get you onto the podcast at some point, Stephen. So I thought we've had a couple of discussions this week, and there's been quite a few comments on youth in bowls and how obviously the youth are the future, etc. Now I know you're very instrumental in creating a bowls academy down in Leicestershire. Just wondered, could you give us just an outline of how this came about and how far your plans have gone, and are you ready to get rolling as soon as we're able to start playing bowls again?
Well, pretty much so, yeah. There was about 5 of us come together, decided once the kids were getting to 16, 18, if they weren't making the senior squad, they were just giving up, couldn't be bothered. So what we wanted to do was get them right at the start of the bowls career, bring them all together from all across county and teach them stuff, well, obviously normal basic bowling, forehand, backhand, etiquette, head reading, measuring, every different aspect that we could put on them so they're ready for match situations. and then obviously we're going into senior county.
Interesting point that you made there, Stephen, about obviously you've obviously got a few young players in the county already. So you were saying that you were losing them between like sort of 16, 18. Was that because of relationships and university, college, etc., or was it just there wasn't enough there for them to keep them interested?
Well, like I say, I think it basically, if they didn't want to be playing friendlies on a Thursday and Saturday, you know, your bread and butter games.
Yeah.
They want competitive bowls, which I understand. And I've also, I think it was Rishi last week who said about not changing the format of bowls, keep bowls as bowls so people recognise it. But in my opinion, and I mean, I've spoke with a lot of people about keeping games short, making them quick, keeping them interesting. I've also spoke with Terry Keane, who's the Senior Vice President of Bowls England at the minute, because she knows the guy who set up the Hertfordshire Academy. So they're getting in touch with us, they're helping us with thinking. Plus, obviously, Martin Shipley, who's a county coach, and Gary Kilbourne, he's going to manage the junior academy. Try and keep us interested as long as possible and understand the need of people saying that you need to get like 40-odd-year-old blokes in, which, yeah, I'll fall into that category. But if you get the kids in first, the mum and dads will come and watch. They might have a go, they might enjoy it, they might keep the kids in. Once the kids are grown up, obviously been through uni, had their own families, whatever, they'll think, oh, I remember when my dad used to take me bowls, and they'll bring their kids bowling. And that's what I'm trying to create, a cycle as well.
I think the academy's a great idea, Steve, because I've sort of mentioned it within our own county before. Having started when I was 10 myself, Richie started when he was young as well. I think it's fantastic to get the youth involved without a shadow of a doubt. We need as many young players as what we can. There always seems to be a lot of focus on saying the survival of the game will be down to youth. Now, it's taken me a few years to understand that, because I was always pro get youth. But the more I've seen the sport and learned from it, I think all ages, there's a focus on every single age to get into the sport. The bonus of introducing the youth is we probably know a high percentage of those we're going to lose at some point due to work, education, whatever that may be. But having an academy system where young people can get together and be there as a group rather than just individuals in a club, I think will help to reinforce the possibility of them coming back in the future.
You play together, you stay together.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I mean, it's all, I can relate to anybody of any age, you know what I mean? Stand and have a conversation. I mean, I was born in the 80s, but I can talk about the 60s. I can talk about modern technology now with kids. To a degree, I'm not that brilliant. They're all sort of focused on the same thing. And if they get brought up together, like you say, you've stayed good mates with Scott because you come through at the same time, which we want a lot of friendships developing to make pairs, to make triples, to make fours, to make a decent county squad. And also we're using, we've got 2 England internationals at the minute from Leicestershire, one in the ladies, one in the men's.
Fantastic.
And we're going to try and capitalise on their experience. And also, Leicestershire won the Middleton Cup 2 years ago. And I know a lot of them players have got kids and they're willing to help us out.
There is a big responsibility there, and we've talked about it in the past. There needs to be that role model or somebody who you can drop back to and just have a 5-minute chat. I think everybody needs that person to contact and just have that word. And I think as an international, you cannot go any further than looking up to somebody at that level, because they're not there by chance. Yeah. They're there because they know what they're talking about and they know what they're doing.
There are a lot of good kids out there. It's just a case of getting them together.
Definitely. Giving them the reason to come back and enjoy it all of the time as well.
Yeah, so like you say, Leicester City a couple of years ago did well. Everybody were buzzing around Leicestershire. So on the bowls green, everybody would be looking for Leicester results. But like I say, you could see they were all relating to something.
Definitely.
And it was nice to have a focal point.
It is, because it's not just about coming down and having playing bowls all the time. You've got to come down, have a bit of a laugh, and you've got to take the mickey out of each other and, have a bit of banter while you're at the club as well, because, it could get very monotonous if all you were doing is coming down and just roaring balls up all the time. So I think it is definitely for youth. I think quick music, loud, fast, those are the things that kids want nowadays.
Yeah, look at the Ultimate Bowls Championship in Australia. That's just fantastic to watch. In my opinion, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but everyone's sort of dancing around in the crowd, bright colours, disco lights. You're never going to get that on an outdoor green, I know.
The bonus about the Ultimate Bowls Championship is there is always something happening. It is really fast, but there is points being scored constantly, so it keeps the crowd engaged, which I really, really like. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
So I really hope that something like that does happen in this country. So as the academy stands at the moment, are you ready to, have you actually started the academy? Are you ready to roll as soon as COVID's finished?
As soon as COVID's finished, it'll just be a case of letting all the kids know, because we generally know all the kids between us, and letting the clubs know if they've got any kids that we don't know about to send them along, and we can just get going. Kit will come along within time and other little bits and bobs, but we can hit the ground running now.
And have you got anything in place within your county that will support any of these younger players that maybe come through? My thoughts were, a bit like a scholarship in an academy where if they're starting to show strong potential with regards to maybe moving up to county standards, have you got anything in place that will support them, maybe financially? Is that
no, not from the county as yet. I'm not saying it's a completely closed book, but there's nothing been spoke about or been put in place. But I think it could be an option. Because, again, I was speaking to Joe Dawson, who's just made the England squad, and he was saying everything used to be sponsorship-based, didn't it?
It did. And I just think you never know. If you were to, you might get a 13 or 14-year-old or, maybe younger who shows a rare talent and is fast-tracked into the county, but you just never know in the background, has he got the finances or has she got the finances behind them to be able to afford the county fees on a county day or afford the equipment that you need as far as clothing, etc. So, that was my thoughts. Is there something there that potentially the academy can work towards to maybe support that type of thing if required?
Well, yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about and asking questions, because, like you say, you could have somebody who's brilliant but just can't afford the orange bowls everybody else is bowling with, so they don't want to play.
Exactly, and it could create they may never ever see it because some people don't like to talk about that type of thing, and if parents were seeing that it was going to potentially cost a lot of money in relative terms to them, you just never know whether they might just get them by the collar a little bit and just drag them away from the situation, even though it's not wanted by the child. There's just little things like that, and that was my thoughts always about how an academy, not only just for bringing on young players, but also just giving them that little bit of support.
Yeah, so definitely worth thinking about, that is.
You must be thinking, even if you did lose them, let's say, for example, you had 25 young kids, young girls, young boys playing the sport, and you lose, let's say you lost 20 of them through the natural reasons of work, families, etc. You must think to yourself that you've got a strong chance potentially of maybe getting 60 or 70% of those back at a later date when they're able to do so as well.
Yeah, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, but they should come back in theory.
You never know. So it has proved it's got pedigree there, because you talk to a lot of people who have been through a similar situation of starting when they were younger, then disappeared, but they have come back because the barriers aren't there anymore. The stigma's not there, the perception's not there, because they know what it's all about. So you haven't got that initial barrier to get over to trying to encourage them to come to the sport when they're maybe 25, 30-year-old later on. They tend to just sort of filter back in and say, I might pop down and have a try of playing bowls again. So it's a really good way to sow the seeds, Stephen, and I obviously will wish you the best of luck with the academy. Richie, have you got anything you'd like to ask?
No, my feelings about people putting something back into the game. So, Stephen, I just doff my cap to you, mate. I love to see people trying to promote the game. So, and I hope your academy's a success, mate, and I'm sure you'll keep us informed at how it's going when it eventually gets off the ground.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And I know, just before we move on to the little balls or balls quiz, Stephen, I know there was somebody who was also instrumental in setting this up, who you just wanted to give a little bit mention to as well.
Yeah, obviously my middle name that's been coming up on the draw has got a Taffy in there. It was 2015 Leicestershire president John Jenkins. It was his wrestling name, Taffy was.
Yeah.
But he unfortunately passed away in a car accident in last month. So he was very, very instrumental in this, and he believed strongly in the kids, bringing them forward into the clubs, into the county, and he was respected by everybody, but he knew every joke in the book. He could never remember the punchlines, but he knew all the jokes.
Fantastic. And I know I've spoken to a few people about John, and like I say, he had a massive amount of respect from a lot of people. You know, if there's no bigger incentive to make this academy work, there is that legacy that potentially he could leave behind from having created this and making Leicestershire a stronger county for the future. Fantastic. That's great, Stephen. Right, well, it's been great to get an update on your academy, Stephen. So if you are okay, I'm just going to quickly run through my Balls or Balls questions. It's the new game that we've put in place, and it's literally 5 questions, Stephen, true or false, but instead of saying true or false, it is balls for true or balls for false. So if you are ready, we will crack on with the question. Number 1, the mathematical name for the shape of a Pringle crisp is a hyperbolic paraboloid.
Balls.
Charlie Chaplin came first in a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest.
Balls.
Donald Duck's middle name is Fauntleroy.
Balls.
The Statue of Liberty was a gift from France.
Balls.
According to Scottish law, it is illegal to be drunk in charge of a cow.
Balls.
Great stuff. Right. Well, you only had one debate from the last show, which was Mr. Morland's attempt. So just to quickly run through them, I think I got this right. So the first question was the mathematical name for the shape of Pringle is a hyperbolic paraboloid. You said balls, which is correct. Charlie Chaplin came first in a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest. You said balls, I believe. And you were correct because he actually came third. Donald Duck's middle name is Fauntleroy. I do believe you said balls, is that right?
Balls, false, yeah.
It was actually balls. It is Fauntleroy. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from France, and that was also balls, and I believe you said that was balls. And according to Scottish law, it is illegal to be drunk in charge of a cow, and that was also balls, which you also got right. So if I'm right, Richie, I believe he got 4 out of 5.
You're top of the shop, Stephen. You're top of the shop, mate.
Makes a change.
Absolutely raced to the top of the 2-man leaderboard by a comfortable 3 answers.
That'll do,
the challenge is to beat 4 in the future. So thanks very much for that, Stephen. Wish you all the best of luck in the future, and thanks for obviously supporting us by listening, and you're always a regular in our competitions.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Cheers, Rich.
Bye. Bye now.
And now we take a trip back to 2007 when I was skinny and Bolty had a head of hair. Right, mate, because obviously the sport's in having a bit downtime, and as we know, I write for the local Sunderland Echo Balls report on a weekend. Been delving into my archives, and in my latest report I dug out 2007. Now, apart from you winning the county pairs final with Mr. Avery, and me getting beat in the county singles final 21-20, which I'm still not over. The end of the article I mentioned about the national singles final, and Essex Andy Squires won it, and what was different about him winning the title was that because Essex have such a large county, they got 3 entries into the competition. Now, Andy, en route to qualification, actually lost the county semi-final. But to get the 3rd entry, both beaten semi-finalists play each other and the winner goes down. Now, me, from a competition point of view, if you lose in a competition in an early round, you're out.
Yeah, I mean, if it's, we're not playing a round-robin competition here. We're playing a knockout, and I'm trying to wrap my brains as to whether it happened to me, whether I got beat in my final in 2011 before I went down and won the national final. I tend to agree. I like the thought of people getting an opportunity to go and compete at the national championships, which they may do once in a lifetime or whatever the scenario. But I agree with you fully with the fact of how can you be a national champion if you've lost in a knockout competition earlier in the rounds? And I just don't understand why you can't just play each county down to the winner and the winner goes down. Not only for me would it assist the scheduling, where we've certainly seen in the past that there's been competitions, if you've qualified in multiple, you may be asked to drop out of a mixed or something like that, or in some cases I was lucky enough to qualify in quite a few, but unlucky enough to have to play something like 5 games in one day, where it was the 4s and the champion singles. I had to play 3 rounds of that and 2 rounds of the fours, and was physically just knackered. And my last game in the champion singles was up against Jamie Walker, which is exactly what you need when you've just played 10 hours or something in the baking hot sunshine, which it was at that time. It was absolutely scorching, and I was out on my feet. And I think Jamie put us away pretty comfortably, 12, 13, something like that. Yeah, and I just, is there an opportunity there where if you were to just have your winners from each county go down, you could introduce some more team competitions as an option to fill the schedule out and give those extra people an opportunity to come down and compete within another competition, whether it be a club or a county. I don't know.
I don't mind sort of like county finalists going down, because it gives more people a chance to have the experience of going to Leamington.
Definitely.
I just think that there must be some way of making it so you end up with 3 semi-finalists. You have 3 semi-final ties, and the winners of them all go down.
Yeah.
And then if you've got to have a round robin for your county champion, and do it that way. I think that sits better with me than. I mean, I'm not knocking Andy's achievement. Absolutely fantastic achievement. I was down. He beat Mark Walton in the final, and he was absolutely magnificent. The rules were like that in 2007, and I think the rules are probably the same now. Are they, mate?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I know. Devon. If you get beat in a semi-final, then if you've got 3 entries going through, I think the 2 beaten semi-finalists, would it be 4 semi-finalists would end up into a pot again?
No, it would be just your 2, because your 2 semi-final, the winners of your 2 semi-finals will go through, and your 2 beaten semi-finals will end up in the pot again, won't they?
Yeah, so they play against each other for that 3rd spot. It just doesn't sort of ring right. And like I say, I still sort of stand by. Even the county, even both county finalists, does it take the shine away from the county finals day and all of the pressure that could come with it and the suspense? Because let's be honest about it, when you've become a multiple sort of qualifier, I remember back in the days, the biggest match of our season was the semi-final of the county.
That's
because
right.
that was your final.
You were good.
The biggest outcome of that season at that time was to get down to Worthing, and I remember losing my first 1 or 2, I think it was, and heart-wrenching because you were so close. But the thoughts weren't on to becoming county champions. It was all about getting to that national finals and experiencing what it's like down there. I just wonder whether if it was just the winner, would those county finals take on a little bit more precedence, and would you get more people coming along to watch them because there was a lot more hanging in the balance? Only the winner was going to get through, so you're not just playing a game thinking, well, the worst I can come out with here is losing my county final, but I still know I've got a chance to go down and win a national title. Whereas if it was all on that one game on that day, I think it would just create a lot more suspense, a lot more pressure, and potentially I think you would get the one person from your county in that season who could potentially cope with the pressures of going down and playing the national finals.
Yeah,
how many times do we see people who get beat in the final who've potentially had an easier draw without putting anybody down? You always see it. There's an easier draw and there's a bit harder side of the draw. Yeah. And that easier draw gets through that semi-final, and the county final ends up being a bit of a whitewash because that stronger team generally runs away with the final. And it's certainly one up for debate. It would be quite interesting to ask that question to a lot of listeners, really, just to see what their thoughts are, because I'm sure there's pros and cons, and I'm sure Bowls England have got the reasons for taking X amount of people down, but I think there's also a lot of benefits of just taking the winners as well.
I don't know whether you can remember, but 2007 I was actually champion of Durham in the singles for about half the length of the green, because I know you were playing the pairs at the time, but I was playing Stewie Clark from Hundon's, Bandana Man,
yep.
Bit of a character, running up and down, shouting and all that. Great, I loved him a bit. 2019 down, Lyden won, last ball on Stockton, ring 6, big swinger, corrugated iron hand, another one, last ball. You know when you ping it out your hand, you're going, I'm close there.
Yeah.
Drew a smoker. Me mum and dad sitting there, I'm going, I didn't get emotional much. I get halfway down the green, the ball fell out. I got one, and I lost the next day in 21-20.
Nightmare.
Absolutely.
I actually remember that day.
Oh, I was devastated. That was probably one of my lowest points in the game, mate. And do you know when you just get over, talking about we went down to Worthing with my dad that year, and we got in the digs, and we came down for the breakfast on the morning, and I was sitting at the table opposite us. I'm sorry, I'll have to beep that out. Stewie and the missus. It was like American Crime Show previously on the show.
My memory isn't the greatest, but am I right to think you came out the blocks firing on that day, didn't you?
I did. I was flying, mate. I was flying. Then I think it rained a bit. The rain came on a bit, and he just found this corrugated iron hand. It was literally straight as a die, and he just fell on it lovely. And it was the time where you could give the jack away as well. So
that's right, yeah.
When the ball fell out, I was gutted. I decided to keep the jack and drop it short the length up this other way, the end that way been killing us. And I dropped it 1 4 foot short up the corrugated iron hand, and that done for us. He got round it, and I was absolutely gutted, mate. But never mind. I'm over it now.
There's a little one for you, since you just brought it up. The old giving the mat away. What was your thoughts about that?
I thought it favoured the better players. I was a bit against it. I thought it favoured the better players, mate. I thought they always had the last. I mean, to give, for example, and I'm not blowing smoke up you or anything like this, but to give you the last ball on every end, for the majority of the ends, you would alter the head.
I agree with you, because I used to take it. I used to take that option all the time. I used to give it away, because it would never bother me in a lot of circumstances. It would only take a situation where I was really, really struggling on a particular length. Maybe that the opposition was playing. The only time I would ever take it is if I was in that situation. Apart from that, I would always back myself to be as consistent over whatever length anybody would play. So I always used to take an option of giving it away, and I know a lot of the top players did as well. So I agree with you. I did like it, but I liked it for my own benefits rather than the benefit of the game. And I think there's a lot to be said about control of the jack.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players out there who might be great jack throwers, and if you're forced into having to find your length with that jack on a regular basis to benefit the game, it's not always guaranteed. And how many times do we see somebody playing great at a length, and then all of a sudden wangs the jack 2 yards past where he's been playing, 2 yards short, loses the end, and then the opposition takes over from that point. So I totally agree with you on that point.
I know given the mat away rule obviously is now gone, but extra ends you still get the choice, and that's
you do.
If you win the toss on an extra end, how many times do you take the last ball?
Me personally, probably 95%.
Yeah, and I think everybody probably does done that.
It all just comes down to whether you've dominated a particular length, but I just always go on the premise that you could just launch one up the middle, bang, 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 and the one thing that is the biggest frustration in this sport is you've got no control over your destiny.
No.
It's not like darts. You kind of just ping 3 darts in and check out. You kind of play an ace in tennis to finish the game. You've just got no control over what happens with that last ball. You can't then come back and do anything about it. So you could play the best balls you've ever played but still get nothing out of the game.
Yeah,
and that's the biggest frustration, but one thing that makes this game so attractive, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the equivalent of having the ultimate say in your destination, isn't it? It's all like you've got the last ball, that's it. There's no coming behind us now. And
if I miss, I miss. At least I can walk off and say it was me.
Yeah,
it wasn't a fluke.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Now it's time to answer a few questions. Right then, mate. On the back of your Bolty's blog live, there were a few questions that obviously time constraints didn't let you get through, so I thought it would be good to incorporate both the blog and the podcast together, and I'll rattle a few off you them, and there's a couple, well, there's definitely one that I disagree with you anyway. Here we go. Right, is it time for us to import Ultimate Bowls format from our Australian cousins? It would freshen the game up for sure.
Quick answer, yes, definitely we need something like that in this country. I think it will be very easy to organise. I have talked to a few people about this, and I think with an input potentially of, let's say for example £1,000 per club that they could either raise through sponsorship or Club 10 club members or whatever it is, whatever the format is, raising that money, then I'm quite sure we could put a bit of a lively competition with music and a little bit different format similar to the UBC over here as well.
And I'll put a caveat on that. Are people getting sick of us constantly ramming or mentioning the Australian golden land down the throats?
Possibly, and if that is the case, then we need to flip it on its head and get the Australians to be constantly talking about what the English or the Welsh or the Irish or the Scots are doing over here, because unfortunately they are doing a lot more with regards to what I would class as a better promotion of the game over there.
Yeah.
So we can keep, we do mention it a lot, and we do mention how big the game is over there. But unfortunately, these are facts. We're not just saying them for the sake of it. If people are sick of hearing it, then we need to do something about it over here and talk about what we're doing rather than what they are doing.
Yeah, fair play, mate. The next one would be the World Indoor Championships, which we have covered before, but we'll mention it again. World Indoor Championships lacking in atmosphere. I think they need to move away from the silence, which would make it a bit of a more engaging for a TV audience. My caveat to that would be 1.2 million viewing figures.
My sort of response to that last week was, it is what it is, and I've been critical of it in the past because we feel we can create that atmosphere we see in international series and things like that, but when and where do we create a tournament that can basically allow that to happen? People work, people have got commitments, and it's quite easy to say, well, loads of noise and get loads of people there, but the way it is at the minute, and I think what changed my mind on that is Rishi hit it on the head, was that these people are the ones who have backed balls and watched balls for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't be on TV if those people weren't there. But I remember a few years ago, Trevor Taylor, I think, was who qualified, and Richie Chandler and a few others from Cumbria went down there and they were playing drums in the crowd and making a bit of noise, and it was seen as a not done thing at that time, but it was accepted and it was actually brought a little bit to it. So in my opinion, who's to blame? Is it the people who are not going and creating that? Because I've never seen anybody say that there's any objections to people going down and making a bit of noise in the audience. Have you?
No.
There's no rules, and WBT have never ever came out and said, I'm sorry, but during the game we need you to be as quiet as a mouse. We get a few players who spit the dummy out now and again and chuck the balls about, but I've never seen anybody say that you can't do that. So if there's an issue, then get 20, 30 of your club members together, go and support your local club, whoever's competing, and make as much noise as you want in between balls. Yeah. If the people there don't particularly like that, then that becomes the issue, because they're not moving with the times that we need. But like I say, I've never ever heard anybody who's gone down to Potters who has ever said, I would like it to stay quiet like that all of the time. Well, let's get some groups together and make some noise.
Yeah, no, I think, was it Wilgris?
Wayne Wilgris, yeah, local
he had a few lads
championships,
went down and just created a little bit of noise at one end. It was like a home end.
Yeah.
And I thought it was good.
That is one of me, I said it on my live broadcast, and I give a lot of credit to the WBT, but one thing I've always criticised is there needs to be more opportunities for new players to get to that tournament, because new players create a new audience, create new followers who could potentially go down there and create the Wayne Wilgris scenario where they're going down and making a bit of noise. And in a lot of respects, the championship was lit up by him down there, and it was not due to his bowling, just due to the noise and the atmosphere that was created while he was there. Sort of reverts back to my point of, nobody says you can't go to Potters and make noise, but nobody is going down to Potters to make that noise. So don't complain about who's there, because they're the ones paying the tickets, and that's the way they want to be.
Probably my argument about the TV audience would be, we do pick holes in them, but how many other sports would love to have for the little exposure that we get in that January window? I mean,
and when you look at it, how many sports, you can't see a lot of the snooker crowd, but we must be on par with the snooker crowd for the World Championships, with how many people are packed into that audience. You don't see many spare seats. It is constantly rammed all of the time, so the interest there are plenty of people in there, and it only takes, this is what I sort of said, the BBC, instead of focusing on somebody who's fallen asleep or doing a bit of knitting in the crowd, then if we get a little pocket of people who are making a bit of noise, then that's the opportunity for the BBC to pan onto them and show that there is a bit of atmosphere in bowls. So we can blame all we want, but we've got a responsibility to be able to change that as well. And until WBT turn around and say, no, we don't want that, then that's where the issue is, in my opinion. Yeah.
Right, moving on, we have another one. We need national finals televised at Leamington. Now, I would say it would be the cost. I can remember the AIBA were criticised very heavily at an AGM that I attended many years ago for the fact that they were forking out, I think it was 70 grand to cover the Premier Threes at the time?
Yeah.
Now, televised events don't come free.
Definitely not. And in a lot of cases, I think a lot of people are blind to the fact that they think that the TV companies come to Bowls and say, we are going to give you X amount of money to cover this championship. No. The other way around. We are paying them for the service to come and advertise for them. So they're on a win-win situation because they come down, do the job and get paid for it, and then probably get kickbacks of any sponsorship, etc. that comes off the back of that. My thoughts are we've got lots of technology available now. I think the least we can start to see now is at least have a national championships channel on YouTube where you can tune into a particular match or, you know, two different matches or something like that. That for me should be the minimum of where we are now to promote the sport in a better light. Because what's to say that we get the phenomenon that we saw with the Mickey Brett Bowl, something incredible happens on YouTube and we've got it on video that could then be potentially seen by lots of other people, which then gives more exposure to the sport.
Right, and next one is, and this next one actually could be a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire £1 million question. How do we make the younger generation interested in bowls? How do we change the minds of the youth? And do we need to change the image of bowls? And how do we do that?
I definitely need you to give us a few cuts for the answers here.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have tackled that one a bit, haven't we?
I did that, and I tackled it on my live show. Look, we can bang the drum and keep saying, how do we make it more appealing to youngsters? I personally think that the sport is in a better position now than it ever has been. We've introduced coloured clothing. We've introduced you can wear a pair of trainers now. God, back in my day when I was playing, when I was 10, 11-year-old, I used to hide around corners in that, man, because I was turning up and getting picked up in a car, and I was standing there in a pair of grey trousers, a shirt, a tie, a blazer with badges and that on. Any of my mates would say, "Mate, man, I would have getting kicked up the street." And it's like we're not in that position anymore, and it is a small thing. And I'm sure there's people out there say, "What's the big thing about coloured clothing?" It is purely image. You know, these people who are older are forgetting about what it's like to go through school and how hard it can be for some kids who might get bullied or picked on. And unfortunately, bowls falls into that category because of the perception that it's got.
Yeah.
So now that you can actually wear what, in my opinion, is some really nice, smart-looking trainers, bowls manufactured trainers. In a lot of respects, you could wear a pair of Nikes or a pair of Adidas if you get the soles done. So there's no issues with regards to that anymore. Tracksuit bottoms, you're wearing pretty much now, the greys, whites, blacks, whatever. No kids would feel embarrassed now, in my opinion, if the club have got the setup right, of standing on a corner waiting for a lift and wearing some of the club kit, because you look no different in some respects to a cricketer playing 2020. So I think the sport is in the right place with regards to introducing youth to the sport, but the problem we've got is that it's just a hard sport to get youth into. It's just like any other sports. All sports are struggling now, purely and simply for the fact of there are so many things for other kids to do, and you are cherry picking as much as what you can. So I was very sort of pro, let's try and get young people into the game 10 years ago. We need to do more. But as I've grown through the sport and seen what the scenario is, and seen that there has been very, very little change, if not a deterioration, in the 30 years that I've played for younger players coming in, but there is more available for them to come in. I just think we need to focus on the fact of you get anybody in at any age, and numbers count. It doesn't matter whether you're a young lad or whether you're 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. If you can get them into your membership, then potentially you're going to have them for 5 or 10 years. So does it matter how old they are?
Yeah. The second last one, mate. Can you ever see the committee structure of clubs changing? Businesses don't operate this way, and people with innovative ideas get cheesed off. I'm convinced we need to welcome sports such as table tennis, petang into our facilities, or bowls will be dead in 20 years.
With the committee thing, we are always continually focusing on trying to drive refining committees and introducing new positions within the committees. I think the days of having president, vice president, chairman, vice chairman, having 15, 16 people on a committee, there is just no necessity at all for it. I think you need a core committee of 5 or 6 people. Well, let's maybe go to 8, and then the rest are there on a volunteer basis or a subcommittee basis who do individual jobs for the club. So we obviously try to push to introduce things like promotion and media. Got to get out there, you've got to use social media, you've got to use your websites, you've got to just make sure you're getting the word out using the technology that's available.
Yeah.
So that's a position that for me is imperative within a club. I know we're going to touch on it later on, but my outdoor club, I've sort of had a discussion with them and said, do we need a president of the club? We don't. We'd be lucky if we see one visiting club or two visiting clubs in a season, or need a president to do something at any point through the season. So I said, why would we have that position if it's not just there is there a purpose, basically? So I've sort of focused on the fact that the chairman should be the key man in the club, not the president, and he's the one who makes the decisions, runs the committee, and does what's right for the club.
See, now we'll tackle it now. I would disagree, because I think every club in any sport has a figurehead, and all right, the president, it's just their name and what have you, but I think it's a good reward for one of your longest standing members of the club. I think that's something that's always stuck with us. I've seen, I go into clubs, I see photographs of the president, and you can sit and talk to lads, members of the club. Yep. I mean, Bolton Dairy Lane, you've got like Sir Harry Bridges. I mean, your own club, you've got George Brown, who's probably the oldest member now, I would think, mate, since sadly Bobby went.
Alfie, I think. Alfie Ferguson, 90. I think Alfie is now.
Right,
I think George is a year behind him.
Yeah, I think. I just think it's a nice honour to bestow on somebody. Do they contribute to the club? They've done it. They've done their stint over the years, and I just think it's nice to say, yeah, thank you very much. We recognise what you've done. Tremendous.
I'm not disagreeing with you, because like I say, I think there is valid points there. Would you not, in this day and age, up to county level? I can, on recollection, I can think that there is a position potentially for a president, because you play umpteen amount of games through a season, and he is the figurehead of the county. At club level, would you not class him as a club ambassador or a club captain rather than a president? I just think the word president again doesn't give off great aura in the current circumstances.
I think you could class the president as the ambassador, because he'd be sort of like, he would be the role model type of thing of the club, wouldn't he? He's somebody, yeah.
So do you not think that sounds better, being a club ambassador rather than a president?
Well,
president to me just shouts of hierarchy and shouts of, in sort of, I always call it the pomp and circumstance of the old days of blazers and ties. I mean, if we had a president in our club now, I don't think anybody in our club's probably got a blazer to come along and.
I'm not saying go down. You go down the blazer and chain brigade. I just think it's just nice to bestow. And it's like a pat on the back. I mean, it's like when you make somebody an honorary life member of your club. It's a pat on the back for what you do here for your club, what you've done for the sport. Anything wider. I just think, I mean, my own club, I walk in my own club and I look up and I hope I never get my photograph on the wall, because you go on the president's wall and you're no longer with us. But it is, you look up and you say, yeah, they started the club off before I was here, and it's just recognition for what they've done. That's just my personal opinion.
I think it's a great open discussion. I think it's a one. It would be nice to potentially put that out to everybody via the page, and anybody who listens as to what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I know regarding Bolts Durham, they were probably planning not to have a county president this year, because you can't get people to fill the roles. People don't want to fill the roles. Now, that's a different case altogether. If people don't want to fill the roles, right, fair enough, move along and have a chairman, and that's it. Have a team captain, team or whatever. But if people want to fill the roles, yeah, introduce them. Let them come in, give them the opportunity. But so anyway, moving on, we've kept the last one because this one probably would have made a canny chat. And there will be more in 30 seconds time.
And it's competition time. As always, thanks very much to Alex Marshall Sports for your support of our competitions. So, our question for the day is, during our Balls or Balls questions, which comedy actor came third in his lookalike contest? Answers either via our email on wrong.bias@hotmail.com. You can drop us a message via Facebook, or you can drop us a message or comment on Twitter, and those will go into the draw, and we'll be doing the live draw before the next podcast on our Wheel of Steel.
Podcast while you were still on air. Bowls is an older person sport because local clubs are not supporting the community. If we admit it's an older person sport, we have lost. It's down to the clubs that they are people that will change things. The national bodies are a drain. They do little for local clubs other than take a fee which is used to support county and national teams. And the little caveat, which I think we'll take with a pinch of salt, to be honest. One England player said it did not cost him to play for the country. Where do you want to start with that, mate? I mean, let's start and say, well, local clubs are not supporting the community. Well, if the general public are not supporting it, why have a club?
Exactly, and there is a massive issue here, which I've seen this firsthand. Clubs have as much responsibility of going out there and making themselves available to communities as somebody pushing them to do that. In some respects, it's easy to turn around and say this is what's wrong because clubs need to do this, but the clubs have got to get off the backsides and actually get out there and do it. Yeah. You need to be approaching all of your local groups. You need to be approaching, and helping with volunteering in and around the area. A few examples in our local area: litter picks and looking after the local park and things. You start to build those relationships, then you become a key part of the community, and I don't see that from a lot of clubs in my area. And like I say, I don't know what's happening elsewhere. Yeah. So the community side of things is a very, very simple thing to do, in my opinion. I think it is a case of making connections and saying this is where we are. One of our arguments all the time is half of these people in the community don't even know you're there.
Yeah.
Because I've had people visiting our club who said they've just asked somebody 30 yards down the road who was standing outside the house and said, "Where's the bowling club?" And he went, "There's no bowling club in Silks." So if the community don't know about it, then why would they get involved?
That's right.
So it's up to those clubs to get out, let them know they're there, and put a few events on to invite the community to come down to the club and open the doors up and let people go on and have a try and change the perception about bowls. So the community side, I tend to agree that clubs need to do that. But that's up to the clubs. That's not up to anybody to come and sort of walk you down the line and make you do it. I don't think there needs to be any guidelines put in place of how to do this. It's just common sense to get out and make yourself available. Yeah, if nothing, what was the second bit there? Which
well, just on the community bit, if nothing else, just put a sign out to say Bowls Club this way. Yeah. How many clubs do you know have got a sign out? I mean, I've seen it. I can remember one, Peltonfell Bowls Club this way. If you go on the bottom end, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Right, I know they are. Right. Anyway, the other bit of it was it's the National Buddies are a drain. They do little for local clubs other than take a fee, which is used to support county and national teams. This will go down to just to let people aware that regarding the Bowls England, I think it's clubs pay £8.50 for an affiliated member, and that is split down between Bowls England and your various counties, and none of that money is actually used to run the county, I'm led to believe.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying anything here that I didn't respond to this question at the time, and £8.50 per member to go towards a governing body, in my opinion, is an absolute pittance. It is chicken feed as far as I'm concerned, and compared to other sports. Now, my initial thoughts are that if clubs are struggling because of the £8.50 they're having to declare to the national governing body to say that this is our membership, so that the governing body know exactly how many members are playing at that club and basically can create an overall figure of bowls within the country, then my first shout would be you're not charging enough for your membership. And that might seem a little bit cutting and callous, but that's simple facts. Yeah. I mean, £8.50 to give that information, and it has a knock-on effect as well. It's very easy to turn around and say that this doesn't get filtered back into this, that, and the other. But how many times do we hear that the sport's suffering? We don't actually know the full extent of where the sport is, because we know that there's a lot of clubs who will not declare a majority of the members.
That's right.
And it's not a breaking news or anything like that. Every club knows that this happens because clubs don't want to pay that fee. Yeah. If they did, then the sport would be in a far better place, because we'll be able to promote and potentially get better sponsors by saying that we have this amount of people, and this will be a big part of why this new membership information is required. We have Jamie on the show.
Yeah.
So that we can do more, or the governing body can do more for the sport. Now, with regards, it's a bit of an accusation to turn around and say that the county does nothing. Do you want to give your spin on that, or what your thoughts are on that one first?
Well, I mean, just dripping back to the £8.50 bit. I mean, my club membership. I'm a council green, so overheads are not a great deal. But the membership fees are £10. Now, we pay £8.50 out of that £10, which leaves the club a profit of not a profit, it leaves them £1.50 to operate for the year.
Yeah.
Now, that's not Bowls England's fault. That's not your county's fault. That's my own club if they're struggling for charging £10. Now, me personally, I'm more willing to pay, right, if I've got to pay £18.50 to cover the £8.50 as an affiliated member, I don't mind to do it because I do competitive bowls.
Yeah.
If that'll help the club out, I'm all for it. I can remember our local, so when the first subject of affiliation to our local district came up, where they said a club had to be affiliated to Bowls Durham to compete in the league. There was a proposal that came up from a local club saying, well, why should we have to pay £8.50 to be affiliated to a county association that gives us nothing just to play in your leagues? And my reply to the lad back was, your £8.50 goes towards the running of your sport in general. Without that, you wouldn't get the press coverage, you wouldn't get anything televised, anything. Any national governing body takes a fee. It doesn't matter which sport it is to be a member of it, and why not pay it for bowls?
Exactly. And like you said, you've hit the nail on the head there. It is the club decision with regards to that. And Craig, you'd go, how much is it to play golf? It's hundreds to go and play a season of golf.
You're looking at £500, aren't you?
Oh, easily. And I've got no doubt a strong percentage of that goes to the golf governing body. But it's the age-old thing that bowls has been so cheap for so long that people, we're thinking £8.50 is a lot of money. Well, £8.50 is 3 cups of coffee. And that is, you've just hit the nail on the head, that is there to support each member with regards to promoting the sport and, saying it goes to the national teams and things like that. It's like everything. It's like people going and watching England football. All of that money that's coming from grassroots football is going to also support that national team. But you need that to be able to promote the sport in the right light. How do you get people to come and play the sport if you're not seeing sport at the top level? So I did get a little bit sort of frustrated at the conversation because it's too easy to pass the buck in a lot of respects, and it's down to individual clubs to make sure that they manage their club in the right way to ensure that an £8.50 fee per player doesn't create an issue within the club. And like I say, your club, I know your club well, and they've obviously got a situation where you're in a position to be able to do that because you're not struggling in any shape or form. But if you were to do that, then it would put the club in certainly a more stable position in the future if you were charging that £10 extra and bringing that revenue in as well. So there's swings and roundabouts, but ultimately I think clubs at the grassroots, it's all very well blaming everybody at the top.
This might be brutal, but it's something that I think you're not obliged to affiliate in a county as a club. No. If you want to be a club, you can be a club. It just means if you want to enter leagues and competitions, you've got to go under the umbrella of the county and your various districts. If you just want to be a little bowls club, a little social club, you don't need to affiliate to a county association. Don't pay £8.50 money and just be a little community club. That's the other way to look at it, isn't it?
It is. We've all got choices. You're not bound. Yeah. And it's just, I think you hit the nail on the head. You've got to run we talked earlier on about committees and running things like a business. You have got to run a bowls club like a business now. It isn't just a pastime where you go down and everything's looked after. It doesn't now. The council or whatever. If you're a private club, you've got your own greens to maintain, and I can bet you bottom dollar there's no private clubs out there that charge £10 for the membership.
Guarantee there's not, mate. I can guarantee.
Well, I mean, we're a council club, and just to quickly throw in there, we're a council club, and we've introduced now a 4-tier system. We've got 2 social memberships and 2 full memberships, £10 social and £30 social. One is you pay your green fee throughout the season. The other one is obviously the higher amount you don't pay any green fee, so you've got full access to the green right throughout the season for one-off payment. And the same for the full membership. It's £40 to join our club as a full member, but you pay your green fees whenever you play, or you can pay £80. You don't pay another thing for the rest of the season. That sustains the club. I don't think we're asking anything more than what is deserved for being able to use a facility for as long as you want over a 5-month period. £80.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what, 3.5 football matches.
Yeah.
You to go and see Sunderland.
Yeah.
24 quid a ticket or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I think you've got to have a really good look at the overall, what it's all about, and make a decision that's best for you and the club.
Well, mate, that's the end of our questions. I think we've dissected them nicely, and I'm sure you might get a few comments on your next podcast live, giving a few talking points. And like I say, folks, any questions that Davey cannot get to in his live podcast, we'll repeat this again, because I think it's something worth doing.
It is, and just quickly to stress the point, it is purely opinion. I'm not trying to say that this is the way things should be done.
Yeah.
This is purely just the way I look at it from the knowledge that I've gained of playing the sport over so many years. So I'm completely open to anybody who is critical of anything that I say. And as I did say on last week on the live thing, I'm quite, I quite like the challenge of somebody coming back and saying, well, no, I totally disagree with you, because it's quite easy to be sitting there and everybody saying, yep, that's great all the time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exactly stimulate conversation.
Yeah, I think it's good people have opinions, and it's good to discuss it. And this is what the podcast is all about. Right, mate, show 16 over, and our wedding anniversary is something called a silver hollow wave. Any ideas?
Absolutely none.
Not a clue.
Answers on a postcard for that one, I think.
We've put the worlds to rights on a few things. Your Bolty's blog was well received.
Yeah, I'd initially said we'll do one every Saturday in between podcasts, but I think I might move that to the Friday, because obviously we've got our slot on a Friday for the podcast. Then we miss a Friday, then it's back on again the following Friday. So I think that Friday in between could be a better spot, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock on a Friday night. And I'll just, as I said, I'll continue to do it until I see the numbers are down to 3 or 4, and there's no value in actually being there or doing it. But I thought the first one was well received, and we'll see how it goes from there. But
you do realise you'll get complaints from ITV about the last live blog affecting Britain's Got Talent's viewing figures.
Well, this is what we've got +1 for. I mean, obviously, I'm sure the 45,000 who were on my live blog are going to put a dent in their viewing figures. But yeah.
Well, it's been a good mate.
It's what this podcast's all about. We talked about it, and it's all about. We love the interaction. We love we do our best not to put anybody down in any shape or form, because what's to say that what's right and what's wrong and what's best for the sport. I'm sure they have the knowledge, and all anybody ever seems to want to do is do the best for the sport. So yeah, it's nice to just have a chat about things. It's purely opinion based, and it's nice to anybody out there. We get a few messages now and again, and I've literally just had one as we've been talking. Actually, just somebody saying about the conversation that I had and putting his point of views across. So it's great. I love to read them, and I love to see people actually listening to what we say and coming back with either agreeing or disagreeing, which is
end of the day, it's just two lads' opinions on the sport. We both love it. Both played many years.
Many years.
And
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Richie. We love the sport, and all we ever want to see it do is get better and get bigger and be in a better place in the future. So what we say is just our thoughts on how we'd love to see that going.
Yeah.
If it's a put down, it's a put down because we think it could be done better, in our opinion, but that might not necessarily be right.
That's right. Yeah, exactly, mate. If the sport was in such a bad plight, the sport wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
It would be on the floor, nobody playing it or anything, but that's not the case. Well, mate,
no, it's not. I think it'll be here for a long time to come.
Well, it's been a pleasure, mate. Until we meet again. Oh, God, a bit virulent again. We'll meet again. I have to stop doing that. Right, look after yourself, mate.
You'll be getting a job doing these stair lifts soon. You'll be
stand a stair lift. I'll be like Peter Kay going up the stair lifts. Advertising the Wrong Bias podcast merchandise. Lovely fridge magnet. Quality, mate. Look after yourself, son.
You too, mate. Take care.
Thank you for listening, and hope you've enjoyed the show.
This has been a Dodgy production.